Today I'm out in Alameda, California with Ford taking a look at the new 2022 Ford Mustang Mach-E GT. There are a decent number of changes for 2022 that we will probably see via a software update on the 2021 model year Mustang Mach-E. This is the one that I own right next to it. You'll definitely see the difference up front between the regular Mach-E and the Mach-E GT. We have a very different front bumper with more of a faux grille look. This does not actually improve any kind of cooling. All the cooling is done via the active grille shutters right down there at the bottom of the bumper. We also have an aero splitter down there at the bottom, functional vents up front to help relieve pressure that we don't find over here on the regular model. The headlights, interestingly enough, are exactly the same. The GT version gets body-colored fender flares, but the fender flares themselves are the same size as the ones that we find on the regular Mach-E. Now, those are not the original Mach-E wheels. Those are actually off of a Lincoln MKZ, and I did that because I actually put the same width tires that we find on this model. The performance trim of the GT gets 245 with Pirelli P0 summer tires. Those are actually Pirelli P0 summer tires on my Mach-E. Out back, we find the same full LED tail lamps with progressive turn signals. Instead of the electric pony, we get a GT logo, and then we get a few changes to the lower portion of the bumper. Logically, the Mach-E GT gets additional power, 480 horsepower, 600 pound-feet of torque in base format, over 630 pound-feet of torque if you get the performance package. But if you want to know more specifically about the GT and the GT with performance package, that's in a separate video. So let's just dive right back into the differences for 2022. These vehicles both use the same nearly 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack, 99.8 kilowatt-hours. This is a huge battery. It's a skateboard-style battery that runs mostly under the vehicle, but it is double-stacked right here over the rear seats to improve packaging efficiency just a little bit. Now in 2021, 88 kilowatt hours of the battery pack was usable. For 2022, 91 kilowatt hours of the battery pack is usable. And Ford has said that that update will apply to 2021 model year vehicles coming very shortly via an over-the-air update. In real-world terms, once this vehicle gets that update, it should get about 10 more miles of range, and it means that this 2022 Mustang GT gets the same 270-mile EPA rating as the regular dual-motor version does. Essentially, every system in the Mach-E is capable of being updated via over-the-air updates or by your dealer if you'd prefer to do that. The charging system is going to get a little bit of an update for 2022 as well. In my Mach-E, charging speeds really taper off drastically after about 80%. So if you're on a DC fast charger, it'll go at a peak of 159 kilowatts for a while, then settle down to right around 115 to 100 kilowatts for the vast majority of the battery pack. But once 80% arrives, it drops down to about 12 kilowatts. So after 80%, it's really no faster in my Mach-E to stay connected to that DC fast charge station. You might as well just unplug, plug into a level 2 station. It's going to be different for 2022. I haven't been able to test it yet, but Ford is promising considerably higher charging speeds after 80%. So if you do need to go on a longer road trip and you want to go all the way to say 90% or 95%, it's going to be much faster in the 2022 model year vehicle. The front trunk is exactly the same size as it was before. We still have that drain plug right there, but if I move over to my Mach-E over here, you'll notice that I have some plugs that are not found on the 2022 model year vehicle. And that's because the divider that came standard inside this cargo area is no longer present. And now this electronic release hatch over here works. So if I press this button, you'll notice no sound. That's not activated yet. And that's why we had that divider there, so children couldn't fit inside. And with this one, you can actually hear it. And it's not just the activation of the electronic latch on the inside that's critical. You can also open the front trunk from inside on the touchscreen or via the smartphone app. Yes, according to Ford, this update is coming to all 2021 model year vehicles. On the inside, we have a slightly different button module right here around the headlight switches. It now includes a traction control off button. Before, that was only in the infotainment system. For this model year, we now get a button. The infotainment system receives a number of tweaks. These are also going to come to 2021 model year vehicles eventually, and you should find most of this on the new Lightning pickup truck as well. The biggest thing that I noticed is the change in CarPlay. It supports a portrait orientation view, and you can swap back and forth, which is really cool. As far as I know it, this is the only portrait orientation infotainment screen in the industry that lets you swap back and forth between different CarPlay views. So if you prefer this view with more of a stacked tile look, or you prefer a smaller, more traditional landscape view of CarPlay, you have the option. The other options in the system also expand. So factory navigation right here, you can expand the map right there and contract it. And Ford is promising improvements to the way that this navigation system navigates you. Probably the biggest and most important change is that Ford is getting more accurate with the state of charge when you reach your waypoints and when you reach your destinations. They say that currently this does not factor in topographic data, but it does take in crowdsourced data from other Mach-E users. And they're promising to add topographical data in the future, so it should get even more accurate than it already is. And I've noticed that my own Mach-E definitely has become more accurate over time as far as using the trip computer right here on the navigation system to determine exactly what your state of charge will be there. And the system is intelligent enough to direct you to more reliable and more available DC fast chargers. That's a trick that I think a lot of EV manufacturers should adopt. So Ford is getting a lot of crowdsourced data saying that a particular charging location frequently errors out or just has bad maintenance. They're not going to direct you to that charging station. They'll take you to an alternate charging station. That's really a good touch. We have Bluetooth phone interface there, which I don't have paired because, of course, I have a smartphone connected. So instead, I have the Apple CarPlay interface come up. We have tire pressure information, basically the same as we saw before, although apparently one tire in this vehicle is low. Typical trip computer information, no real changes on this particular display, but I've noticed that this seems to be more reliable about expanding and contracting the display without any sort of crazy artifacts. If I click on this car icon, I now have a little close icon, which is kind of handy to tell you what to do there. We also have the new Unbridled Extend mode over here. I can engage that in GT and GT Performance only. Now, Unbridled Extend is kind of an interesting mode. It does not increase power. It optimizes cooling for repeatable performance in autocross or small track style situations. So it actually reduces the peak power from the system, optimizes cooling, etc., and traction control, all-wheel drive systems, etc., to give you a more fun and more engaging experience, but not necessarily the fastest experience. Your 0 to 60 time will actually drop if you get the Unbridled Extend mode on. If you get the Performance Pack vehicle, then engaging these drive modes will also adjust the adaptive variable suspension, but you cannot adjust the suspension independently of those modes. Clicking the Access button here gives us access now to a button where we can open and close the rear cargo area with a little animated graphic right there. You can also click it to close the tailgate. And I can click this button to open the front trunk, although obviously it's not powered, so it won't reclose the trunk. The majority of this software is the same as before with minor tweaks around the edges, but if I click on this About Sync here, you'll notice I have hands-free driving mode available through 3/14/2022. This is going to be a subscription-style service for Ford's Blue Cruise hands-off-the-wheel driving system, which now the GT has on it and will be available later in 2021 on all models with the appropriate prep package. Supposedly, over the next month or so, we should start seeing regular Mach-E's with this particular option being available. It'll be displayed in the car and, of course, on the app because you will have to purchase that subscription for it. And again, you'll notice this one has about 6 months of that free subscription. This is going to operate very much like Cadillac Super Cruise with hands off the wheel, eyes on the road. Other than that, the rest of the system features are just slight tweaks around the edges. If I click on this little app icon at the top, we have a Sketch app that's integrated into the system. I don't have this on my particular Mach-E for some reason, so this is probably going to come to other models as well. Now, the one thing that I have noticed is that access for the front trunk, instead of double pulling the handle, you do have to click over here to Controls. We then have to click down to Access. Then we click the button for the front trunk. I would have loved to have seen a shortcut button up here at the top of the screen. The LCD instrument cluster is essentially unchanged. You can see I have a front ajar warning right there. These blinking lights are part of the driver monitoring system. So if your Mach-E has this particular setup right here just behind the steering wheel, then you have the prep package required for the Ford Blue Cruise system. And that's going to come a little bit later. Over here on this side, the other big change for this display is this power and charge gauge here. It will cycle one side to the other to give you regenerative braking indication or power indication. And you'll notice that if I go over here and engage Unbridled Extend mode, give me a second here. Now that I'm in Unbridled mode, the display has changed a little bit. If I engage Unbridled Extend, you'll notice we get some little gray hashes right there at the top of that power gauge. That's telling you that peak power is not available. When we're in Unbridled Extend, or if you've just been driving the vehicle hard in Unbridled mode, you'll notice that the vehicle will reduce power a little bit. In the rest of the Mach-E lineup, theoretically, this could happen as well if you're driving it hard, but you don't really know exactly how much power has been removed from the equation. When you're in Unbridled Extend, the propulsion sound changes a little bit, the autonomous braking system cancels, we also get reduced traction and stability control, and altered all-wheel drive programming. A number of conditions must be met in order to engage Unbridled Extend. The battery pack has to be at a particular temperature, particular state of charge, and a number of other variables have to be met as well. But once you're in the mode, it will stay in the mode until the battery reaches probably about 30 to 40%. I haven't been able to test that so far, but there is going to be a point where the battery state of charge will drop below a point where you can no longer keep that mode engaged. Well, that's it for the changes for 2022. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section below. And of course, sound off if you have a 2021 Mustang Mach-E and you've received any of these changes via over-the-air updates. Apparently it's going to be a staggered program, so not everybody is going to be getting all of the tweaks right away.